I am committed to being the kind of parent that I did not have when I was growing up. Respectful, kind, compassionate, loving. That's not who I was. And I so desperately wanted to be her that I was really willing to do anything to reconnect with that part of myself, to heal whatever I needed to heal, to make space and time for myself so that I could feel better. And then in turn, be the mama that I really wanted to be.
Are you done with being that pregnant or postpartum mom in the gym who is always stuck on the sidelines feeling horrible? Saying, how come no one ever told me this? Are you ready to finally say no to a mom life filled with excess weight, injury, overwhelm, and fatigue? Then help is here. Welcome to the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast, where we dive deep into the information you need to be the strongest woman in and out of the gym, even if you are a mom. If you are done going through your pregnancy or postpartum fitness journey clueless and unprepared, if you are ready to commit and say yes to being that badass fit mom who is shredded and stronger than before the baby, well, listen up. Because this is where we talk about all of the things your doctor or trainer never told you about, so that you can achieve the body you want and take your athletic strength and performance to the next level. Get ready, because here's your host, Daisy Bravo.
So I was driving home the other day. I was stopped at a stoplight and dancing around to my music. And out of the corner of my eye, I see a woman blazing through a red light. And so, of course, that kind of got my attention. And while I was watching this whole thing go down, I couldn't help but notice that yellow little diamond baby on board sign hanging from the back of that woman's car window. And now I don't know for sure if she actually had a baby in the car or not, but I couldn't help but think about why this woman was so distracted. Like, where was she going? What was going on in her head that day that she totally missed that light? Now, as most of you know, I have a fitness program called Rebuild After Baby that helps new moms get back into fitness after baby, helping them kind of avoid things like prolapse, leaking, and helping them with diastasis. Now, my program is always filled with new moms and moms who are anywhere from like 4 weeks to 2 years postpartum, and every week, when I ask them what their struggle for the week is, 99% of them usually complain that they were struggling with time, like getting it all done, trying to find the time for them, for, getting all the laundry done, getting the shopping done. A lot of them have jobs, and a lot of them are struggling to fit in their workouts because they just don't have the time for them. So, sitting at that traffic light, I couldn't help but believe that the mom who just ran that light is probably just like the 99% of moms that I work with in my program, that are struggling to create a space and time for their needs and their dreams and their desires. And as I am sure you know, the transition into motherhood is not easy. You have like a million things to do, and you want to be the best mom that you can be. And sometimes that means putting your stuff and yourself on the back burner. And that's why I am so excited to have the founder of Mornings for Mamas. She is Alison Jane Ryan, and she is fabulous. You're really going to love this interview today. Allison Jane spends her days empowering mamas to step into the fullest expression of who they are and who they're meant to be by creating a morning practice. Now, she's passionate about supporting women through the foggy seasons of motherhood so that they can emerge as a woman and a mama that feels true and nourishing. Now, Allison is a prime example of what is possible when moms put themselves first and intentionally make time to prioritize their needs, dreams, and desires. So, today we are going to talk about how to create that space and time just for you and for all those needs, dreams, and desires after transitioning into motherhood that you have. Now, she is going to teach us how to value your time and your needs and get you to create some pockets of time throughout your day so that you can thrive as a mama and a woman. I wanted to start off, really wanted to say that I really love your message, and that's what really attracted me to you and really wanted to get you on the show because you seem to have this whole mother thing like, really figured it out, and it's like you have, like, the perfect balance between your needs, the needs of your work and family life. It's kinda like you've got a good work-life balance going on, so I'd love to kinda hear your story of how you got into this, made this your business. Did it always kind of start out so flawless and easy for you? Did you always have it so together, or was creating this space and time for your needs and dreams? Did it started as a struggle and you just kind of worked through it? How did you get started with this all? With this all?
Thanks so much for asking, Daisy, and I just love this question. Um, it was a struggle for me. Transitioning into motherhood, I have 2 little girls, and they're about almost 2.5 years apart. And when I transitioned into motherhood, even after the birth of my first daughter, I really struggled with some anxiety and also just prioritizing my needs and finding a way to make that happen because I'm a middle child. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I love to keep the peace. And I was used to operating from a place of thinking about other people all the time and not thinking about myself. And what I found when I transitioned into motherhood, which is not something that is frequently talked about, is just how intentional we need to be in taking care of ourselves because there are so many other people that need taking care of. It seems, or we can come up with all kinds of people that we need to take care of, but
Right.
especially our babies. And then I had my second, and after I had her, I did have I experienced postpartum depression and anxiety. And, it kinda came and went, but when it came back, it hit me really hard, and by that point, my daughter, my youngest was probably about, 9, 10, even 1 year old, so 9 months, 10 months. And, we had recently moved back to Minnesota from Iowa, and I was home full time as a stay-at-home mama to my 2 little girls, and I was very, very overwhelmed, and I was very stressed out, and I was not getting the sleep I needed, and, all of the things that happen to us when we allow ourselves to fall off of our priority list, which is really, really easy to do,
Sure.
especially when you're just trying to make it through the day. And so there were multiple instances where I was really faced with the reality of my situation and of not being happy. And I think, I could go further down that path and into that story of how much I was suffering in my experience of not only anxiety and depression, but just in my experience of motherhood. But I ultimately realized that I was responsible for taking care of myself. And I was the one who was going to need to put myself first and create space and time to reconnect with what I really wanted in that early season of motherhood. And this was around when my girls were almost 2 and 4. And that's really when I started intensely prioritizing myself. And about a year later is when, I think that's right, about a year later is when I really dove into my business and feeling so passionate about helping other mamas do the same.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess you would say part of that depression, that like enough is enough, kind of fueled your change and was like the turning point for you. You're like, this I just can't live like this anymore. There's got to be a better way. Did you have like an aha moment? Um, when you realize that?
Yes, I absolutely did.
Yeah.
My aha moments came in the form of postpartum rage.
Okay.
And I don't know if any of your listeners have experienced this before, and really just intense anger, because I felt so trapped in my experience of motherhood, because I felt so overwhelmed and just so unhappy with my life in that season of motherhood. I my anger was expressed in the form of like physical rage.
Wow.
So I might do something like slam a door really, really hard, or maybe kick a door, um, not knowing me and not
Sure.
knowing my whole story. It might be a little bit like surprising to hear some of these things, but I think it's really important to normalize how anger
Absolutely.
can be exhibited,
Hmm.
especially in motherhood.
For
But the
sure.
the final straw for me was when I broke our plates, our dinner plates in our kitchen sink. And it was like the lowest, probably the lowest of the low I felt. I felt like running away.
Sure.
You know, I felt so unlovable and so unloved. And I
Hmm.
think, that was my own internal reflection of not loving myself. I hated myself and I
Hmm.
hated how I was acting and behaving in front of my children, because to me, Daisy, I am committed to being the kind of parent that I did not have when I was growing up. Respectful, kind, compassionate, loving. That's not who I was. And I so desperately wanted to be her that I was really willing to do anything to
Hmm.
reconnect with that part of myself, to heal whatever I needed to heal, to make space and time for myself so that I could feel better, and then in turn be the mama that I really wanted to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, that is super relatable, and of course, your emotions are they all manifest in different ways, and I can speak for myself and a lot of the clients that I deal with. Um, we're all in our own ways used to being in control,
Mhm.
being able to make we have worked hard to make things go our way.
Mhm.
We've stayed on a path, we've stayed on a plan. And then, when motherhood and the unexpected gets in our way, um, you start to kind of lose that control. And have found that myself and a lot of clients is, yeah, it can manifest in various different ways, and that could be rage. And I'm actually one of those. I'm the type that I'll punch a wall, or and I think that kind of comes from lifting heavy weights. It's like I just want to throw something, have that need
Mhm.
um to kind of feel that power come almost out of me. And
Mhm.
then of course sometimes it manifests differently, and maybe uh, wanting to be alone, separating yourself, or even sometimes crying and things like that. So yeah, that's definitely relatable, and super powerful, and amazing that you know that we can admit to that. And I think that's kind of, I would say personally, the kind of the first step,
Mm.
is to kind of say that stuff out loud, and normalize it. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more on how exactly you help women, and kind of allow them to give themselves the ability to prioritize themselves, when they have a young one or a career, or they want to also um, still give some of themselves to their spouse, of course. So how do you get that started?
Mhm. Well, thank you for asking that question, because I think it's really critical to our own mental health and well-being, and to living a life that is aligned with our values and that we love, to first recognize, you know, what are my beliefs? What are my stories around taking time for myself? And I think, like you said earlier, the first step is like getting honest with yourself, really talking about your experience. I think the first step is really getting honest with yourself about um, why you think you can't take time,
Mhm.
why it is that you're not taking time. For me and for a lot of the women that I work with, they're looking at their own mother as an example of what a good mother does. Not always, and sometimes, it's the opposite, like, I wanna do completely opposite of what my mom did. Whatever my mom did, I'm not gonna do, right? But
Totally.
they are such an influence, so, like, even subconsciously for us, right, of how we are choosing to mother our own children, whether we have one or many. And so, it really first starts with looking at those messages that you are telling yourself, subconsciously. And in my experience, my mother was very much a martyr. And so it was again about like giving, 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 and then expecting that somehow that giving would fill up her cup. But
Mm,
it didn't, right? And
sure.
so um, starting by getting honest with yourself about what you want and taking time for yourself and why you think that's not possible is a huge first step.
Mhm. Love that. It's amazing. Now, I was going through your website and I was really intrigued in your website where you talk about creating pockets of time. And, I wanted to kind of see what that maybe looks like for you and, how we can maybe use that pocket of time, maybe if you can define that a little bit better. And
Mhm.
how can maybe some of our women use to kind of apply that to um, priorities in their life? Like, of course, most of the women here are just, um, trying to really fit in, their fitness or, eating right, things like that. Um,
Mhm.
can that be incorporated in your pocket of time, that you're speaking about?
Oh, absolutely. And as I was thinking about the audience today before I jumped on with this conversation, I was thinking about how some of the mamas may be very new mamas, right? They might have
Yeah, we
very
have a
young
lot of new
babies.
moms here
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah. And some might have toddlers or younger children. And first off, I think it's really important to give yourself so much grace for the season of motherhood that you're in. And remembering that this season that you're in right now, whether it's, newborn baby or a couple months old, wherever you are, it's not going to last forever. And I think that that's a really important place to start from because if your life changes when you become a mom. Your your body changes, your hormones shift, your time, the amount of time that you have for you changes dramatically.
Sure.
And it's not impossible to find pockets of time for yourself. But I think if we start from a place of having a lot of compassion and grace for ourselves, then we won't have these unrealistic expectations about what we think we can do or should be able to do in these different seasons of motherhood. And so, going back to the pockets of time, um, it's really helpful to connect with yourself in this season of motherhood, whatever season you're in. My girls currently are 7, almost 7.5, and 5. So they're a little bit older. But I still do this depending on what we have going on in our family and what life is like for us and our family. And for me as a mother, is just checking in with your energy and kind of noticing where is it in your day that you have the most energy? Is it when you first wake up in the morning? Is it maybe like mid morning? Is it in the middle of the day? Is it late afternoon? Is it in the evening? Or is it like late at night? And so we all have different rhythms and patterns to our energy depending on lots of things. But for me, I find it the most helpful to identify pockets in my day when I have the most energy to take on things like work. Work takes a different kind of energy than does, let's say, like exercising. And for me, exercise looks like taking long walks in the woods.
Mhm.
And so, pockets of time for me change depending on the season of life that my girls are in. But a huge part of my life now is taking a morning practice for myself. And so I set my alarm to wake up before my girls do. And I take that hour of time before they wake up just for me. And I start my day that way. And that feels really good to me. And I started that when my youngest was about a year and a half. And I started that when everybody was getting sleep because that is number one priority in my book. So that's one pocket of time that I've created. If a morning practice is something that would feel good to your listeners, I say go for it. It doesn't have to be an hour, right? It could be like 30 minutes of time. It could be 15 minutes of time to do something that feels really nurturing and good to you. But pockets of time could also be 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes to do some jumping jacks. It could be um, 5 minutes to just sit with a couple glasses of water or a big jug of water and just sit in it and be with that glass of water. I think sometimes when we transition into motherhood and we're in the mind frame of like, I can get all of these things done, right? It takes a long time to recognize that our lives have shifted in a way that there's like a new normal and being easy on ourselves about what that new normal looks like.
Absolutely. I love that. And I know some people are, of course, morning people, and some
Hmm.
are more night owls. But
Yes.
um, I really do. I do like the idea that, even 5 minutes can be super rewarding. I know that a lot of times just waking up 10 minutes early and having a nice, peaceful shower by
Hmm.
myself, knowing that there'll be no interruption, um, that really sets kind of the tone and the energy for the rest of the day. So I really kind of like that idea of having like maybe just and yeah, if you're not a morning person, you don't have to wake up 2 hours early or an hour before everyone gets up. But yeah, maybe even 10 minutes to have a nice quiet moment, enjoy a cup of coffee or, have that nice little shower. But I really like that idea. And
Hmm.
um and it kind of takes some of the pressure, off yourself if it's very lofty to say I'm going to get up 2 hours early every single morning like clockwork and get in this routine that you used to do maybe 2-3 years ago when your routine was a little different. That can be even more stressful for people. So I guess um maybe making, of course, making things more manageable, making a more manageable version of prioritizing yourself might be, in the current season for certain women. And of course that does change. Am I kind of getting your vibe here?
Absolutely. And I
Cool.
also think, lowering expectations about what is possible to be accomplished in a, smaller window of time is always so supportive. Like the end goal is for us to feel supportive in the choices that we're making. Because if it doesn't feel good to us, we're not going to do it, right? If it doesn't feel good to us, it's not something that we're going to be consistent in your own terms. Um, And something else that I wanted to mention about that, Daisy, is that it starts to become a habit. That when we're starting to recognize and really listen in to ourselves and honor our own energy and honor kind of like when those pockets of time feel good for us in the day, then it becomes more of a habit. And it's like habit stacking almost, where we're checking in with ourselves, we're noticing what it is that we need, we're identifying pockets of time throughout our day when we can set some time aside for ourselves. Maybe your baby is in a carrier next to you, or they're hanging out in like a jungle gym thing, or maybe you're going for a walk and you're getting your exercise that way. But there are ways to be flexible with this, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. I was very overwhelmed by a lot of like black and white thinking when I transitioned into motherhood because of my own upbringing, where it was like, if it can't be this way, then it can't, it's either black or white. But I have learned to be more flexible and to see a little bit and live a little bit more in the gray. Because if I try to only do it one way and my girls are in a season that like that's just not possible, then I can't get my needs met. And
Yeah.
so the goal is to meet our needs as mamas, to support ourselves, right? So that we can feel really good in lots of areas of our lives.
Sure. And I have a follow-up to that. I guess, how can we find it in ourselves to give ourselves some grace when, you know, maybe your plan for the day didn't work out as well. Maybe you needed to hit the snooze, or maybe you needed to go to bed early. Um, you know, is there some ways that we can kind of better, um, kind of take off some of that burden on ourselves, or that pressure, if we can't get everything that we wanted accomplished?
Mhm. To me, this is really connected to mindset and also how we're choosing to talk to ourselves and treat ourselves. The number one relationship that we have in our lives is the relationship that we have with ourselves. We had planned in the day to go for a run, but something happened with my daughter and she needed my attention, or maybe she got hurt and we needed to go. Who knows? Like things come up all the time, right?
Yeah.
Unpredictable.
Always.
Predictability is like the predictable. Um, and I go to bed feeling like, wow, I really needed that run today. What I like to think about is what can I do for myself instead? So thinking about, okay, I didn't get my run in, but what can I do? Maybe I can take 15 minutes before bed to do some gentle stretching just to connect with my body. I can, I think getting into the habit of using some affirmations that feel really supportive, so that that's the track that's going in your mind. First, this thinking, oh, I didn't get this done and I didn't get that done. And why can't I get this stuff done? Like I should be able to get this stuff done. I have pretty much removed those thoughts from when they come up, I'm very, very clear about like that is not serving me. And I'm going to replace it with a better thinking thought or better feeling thought. So I might think like I did the best that I could today with the time that I had. Some things are out of my control. And tomorrow is a new day and I'm going to begin again. And when you do start your day, you're starting fresh. You're not pulling in those negative feelings from the day before. You're not beating yourself up. It really matters. And I think, especially in the earlier months and years of motherhood, it can feel really challenging to do this. It can feel really challenging to speak to ourselves with love and compassion and kindness, because we might be lacking on sleep, or we might be lacking on just feeling like, there's just so much to take care of. But if we can try to speak to ourselves with loving kindness and compassion, it goes so far in building that relationship with yourself, and getting creative, feeling like there are ways to meet your needs. They might not look exactly like what you thought they were going to look like, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of our moms can relate to that. And sometimes, and this sounds horrible, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it, but of course we have to, it's good to verbalize it. But a lot of moms go to bed having that guilt, or kind of, beat themselves up, kind of at the end of the day or throughout the day, because they didn't, maybe they weren't the best mom they could be, or, um, you know, maybe work, maybe they're not excelling at work like they used to, or excelling in their workouts. And I really I really think that this mindset component is really important, is how we talk, how we speak to ourselves. Because yeah, that continuous guilt, um, that kind of sense of beating us up, that feeling that we have, at the end of the evening, that we haven't accomplished everything, can really do some, kind of let us lead us on a slippery slope,
Oh, yeah.
if we really don't intervene on that. And those feelings are normal. Um, but yeah, we need to recognize those and kind of jump in and stop those. Do you have any special strategies for that, or is it just kind of constantly trying to bring your awareness back to
Yes.
that?
Yes, self-awareness is key.
Yeah, awesome.
And that's really what I was talking about earlier too, and thinking about your energy throughout the day, becoming more self-aware of how am I feeling? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking? And how do those thoughts make me feel? So the guilt is so normal. I have my own experiences of guilt. And just similar to the conversation we were just having, it's, is this thought that I'm having that like, a thought that I might have personally is, um, you know, I really wish that I could have been more patient in that moment. I regret raising my voice in that way. And I've cultivated a relationship with myself so that I can say and really feel, not just say to myself, but really feel the self-compassion and recognize that I truly am doing my very best and that I have tools and practices that I have leaned into significantly over these last 2, 3 years to be that patient mama. But sometimes I lose my cool too, right? Sometimes I'm not the person that I always want to be, and that happens. That is normal. And so again, it's just so much self-compassion. Um, and it's really amazing how much power we have as women, as individuals, to impact the way that we feel simply by choosing better feeling thoughts. That's not the whole equation,
Mhm.
right? But that is a huge part of it. And it's such a powerful tool to practice and to make a habit of. And it is self-awareness. It is just noticing, oh, I'm feeling really crabby right now, or I'm feeling like super guilty about this situation. What am I thinking about? What am I focusing on?
Mhm.
And that it's kind of like a backwards, it's like a little path that you can follow, a clue to lead you back to your thoughts. And yeah, it's really helpful.
Mm. I love that. It's taking just a moment to step back every now and again can definitely make a world of difference.
Hmm.
Um, I also wanted to chat with you, going through your website. Also, I was noticing that you used that you really kind of help women to thrive, and most of the women that listen here are type A, they're perfectionists and they want to, have it all, whatever that looks like. And I just kind of want to get kind of more of your thoughts of, what your definition is of a woman who is thriving as a mom and thriving as a woman too, because that's a huge part of us. Again, we like we just spoke about is we have a lot of different pressures on us, but you know how can we see ourselves as a a flourishing, thriving woman through this all?
Hmm. Hmm. Such a great question. The first thought that I had was thriving in your life is really such a personal experience. And it's not something else that is defined outside of you, right? Like no one has the end all be all. If you do this, you're going to thrive. And so it's very, very personal and it's so interconnected with your values. So my values really shifted when I became a mom. Things that I thought were really important to me ended up not being that way after transitioning into motherhood. I was very career oriented before I had my girls because I had them a little later in life. And after they were born, I didn't want to go back to that world, right? I decided that wasn't what I valued anymore.
Mhm.
I valued something different. And so when I talk about reconnecting with ourselves and with who we are now, that's a huge piece of it, is really getting clear about what it is that you value. Um, some of my values, just as an example, are connection with myself and with my family. I value play, and I value, feeling free to create a life that I love. And if you can make a little bit of space and time to connect with yourself about what your values are right now, and then get really honest with yourself if you're making choices that are aligned with your values. Maybe you've been, you know, working real hard to get your body back in shape. And I'm saying that with quotations, right? Like back in shape
Sure.
after
Yeah.
motherhood, right? And at some point you might like check in with yourself and say like, well, is that even important to me anymore?
Right.
you know?
Sure. Yeah.
um for the longest time I really held on to, that I was not going to let my kids watch TV. And then I decided, well, I value some time for myself during the day, so I'm going to go ahead and put on a, an appropriate age show for them. So thriving is really about how good you're feeling about the choices that you're making that really creates the life that you're living. It's all interconnected. And thriving to me is feeling really good about life. And it's about getting the sleep that my body requires. And it's about nourishing it with healthy, nutritious foods. And it's about getting outside and feeling the sun on my face. And it's about getting fresh air. And those are things that are really important to me. And so I encourage the listeners to carve out a little space and time to do the same, to connect with yourself and tune out the noise, right? Like get off of Instagram, get off of Facebook. What everybody else is doing is none of our business. It's not tied to our happiness. Our happiness starts from within, and we need to create it and cultivate it.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned, um, get off the social media. Um, and I don't know if you scroll through the influencers who um, are on social media when it comes to fitness, but um, it can be downright depressing to to look at these journeys, which may be true and some may be real, but a lot of them are fabricated. You're seeing like these little perfect glimpses, you're seeing filters, you are seeing um you know uh, sometimes a lot of time and money and effort goes into making some of these um Instagram posts or Facebook stories or feeds look a certain way, and they almost, yeah, they can kind of bring you down and kind of give women a sense of false reality out there. And I kind of want to lead into kind of more about self love and about how finding love for our bodies. And a lot of times when it comes to fitness, it is more when we think about our bodies, we really kind of think of it more from a physical standpoint. So if I've been dealing with a lot of women that have been competitive athletes throughout their lives, or have been in some sort of fitness all their lives, and now they don't recognize that woman in the mirror. They see the extra weight, they see this new cellulite that was never there. Of course there's the if they have some diastasis issues, or the abs don't look like they used to, and they don't recognize that person in the mirror, or even deep down that they have a new hatred for their bodies, or they feel like they've lost that fit identity. And I wanted to kind of speak to you more on that and how we can kind of um, reframe, that reality that yes, we look in the mirror and maybe we're not seeing something that we're not happy with. Do you can you speak on how we can maybe turn that around, change maybe the outlook on that, a little bit more for, kind of from a physical standpoint?
Mhm. When you were talking about this specific topic, Daisy, I was thinking about grief
Yeah.
because, that's huge. Is thinking that, maybe we have feelings of transitioning into motherhood and that we're going to get right back into the gym and it's going to be a piece of cake and our body's going to bounce right back, or, all of those like cliches.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't happen. And it's okay to grieve what is no longer the same, or what you've lost, or what will may never be the same again. I have permitted myself lots of space and time to grieve what I thought motherhood was going to look like, what I thought motherhood was going to feel like. And it comes and it goes. And that's okay. That's a normal part of life. And I think, it can be especially painful when it comes to our physical bodies. We've been looking in the mirror, like you said, used to seeing this body that just doesn't look the same anymore, it doesn't feel the same. It just might feel so different, and I can really relate to that. Um, and I also think it's okay to process these feelings with like a professional, with a trained therapist. Um, and and it's okay to feel like this is something that you're going to be processing for a while. Like that is super normal too. We're all in this together. And as far as self-love goes, I go back to the affirmations and the thoughts that feel more supportive and that also feel true, because it's not helpful just to adopt an affirmation that you feel like you can't really believe in, right? That's
Sure.
not going to serve you. It's things that I have heard and that have felt supportive to me in my transition into motherhood and my body changing so dramatically, especially, as I've gotten older, like my metabolism is absolutely shot, feels like right now. And I know there's some work that needs to happen there. But, it's recognizing that our bodies are incredible. We were able to grow and birth a baby, a human being using these bodies. We are strong and incredible people, incredible women to be able to do that. And then to nourish our babies if we're breastfeeding, and if we're not, that's okay. To focus on the ways in which our bodies are so powerful and so amazing, I think can also feel helpful. And it's all I kind of think of it as like it goes in waves, right? Like we're going along and we feel really good, like, oh, I'm feeling really strong in my body. I know it may not look the same or feel the same as it did before. And then I might have a huge wave of grief that comes over me, and allowing that grief to come, allowing our feelings to be felt. And then we might be, okay with our body again. Like it's not something that ever really goes away. And I wonder if you have that experience too, Daisy, but it feels like a cycle that we
Yeah.
go through
For sure. Yeah,
continually.
absolutely. Definitely can can relate to that. Um and then yeah, and then our and then at the same time as we allow our priorities change, our end goals change, and that stuff, almost kind of gets put in, I want to say kind of, I don't want to say put in the back burner, but it's not as relevant, anymore.
Mhm.
Once we kind of shift our priorities, I do see that a lot.
Mhm.
And it kind of makes me, there's a few things that you said in there that kind of triggered a few other questions. And, there's a lot of women out here that um, maybe don't have the support they need or struggle to ask for help. Um, what would you advise, a woman, or kind of give, allow how do you allow women to kind of give in, relinquish some of that control and take the first step into asking for help?
Mhm.
Is that something that you can kind of shed some light on?
Mhm. Asking for help is a huge topic. That's something that we could probably talk on for like a full another hour because it is so complicated, not complicated, but complex.
Sure,
And
yeah.
again, so personal. Um, but as far as asking for help, it is a muscle that needs to be first, identified that it's there and that you can learn to flex it. Um, and I think it's especially helpful to identify people in your life who you trust and that you feel safe in asking for help. Because, like we talked about earlier, even just vocalizing or saying out loud, or even writing it down first, writing it down and saying, I really need help. I need help. And it's okay that I need help. Everybody needs help. Some of us need more help than others, but it doesn't matter. This is not a comparison game. It doesn't matter how much help someone else needs. The 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 point is we all need help. We all deserve to receive help because it is absolutely not possible to mother or parent in the way that we desire without receiving help. So, first, either writing it down or speaking it out loud to someone that you trust to say, I need more help. And then identifying people in your life who you trust and you feel safe in asking for help, with your young baby or your toddler or, however old your kids are. And then if you're just dipping your toe into asking for help, if this is something that feels really new and really scary for you, again, set yourself up for success. Set yourself up in situations that you feel like you can manage and that you won't, you want to be able to follow through on receiving the help because again, as this becomes a little bit more normalized for you and as you're asking for help more and receiving it, I don't think it ever fully is, you know, 100% easy depending on who you're asking for help and this, the ages that your kids are. But as you start to flex that muscle, it does become less overwhelming. It becomes a little bit less intimidating and scary if you have a lot of anxiety around asking other people for help. Asking other people for help is proof of your strength as a woman. It is not the opposite. And I don't know where we got the idea or the belief that asking for help makes us weak, but it is not true. And I suffered in silence for a really long time because I believed that asking for help was weak. But what I realized is that it was the most bravest thing I could have ever done for myself. And it changed my life in a lot of different ways. So I'm really passionate about asking for help, but there is some complexity to it. It's not impossible. And it's someone said this recently and it was really beautiful way to put it. It's simple, but it's not always easy. But the first step is saying, I need some help and I deserve it.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's huge. And
Mhm.
I'm sure that feels like a big weight off the shoulders when you can actually say that, and say that out loud, and say that with conviction, and actually truly mean it. Um,
Mm,
that
mhm.
I'm sure that's huge. I struggle with the help department. That's for sure. And I think, um, a lot of women who are kind of, you know, type A. I grew up in the household that, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. And, kind of almost sets the pathway for thinking that asking for help is, um, a personal weakness. And
Mhm.
I think it's important that we learn to, get rid of those feelings, because um, there there is no truth to that. We can only be a better person, um, when we are able to allow that burden off our shoulders, I think, because no, it like they say, it takes a village. So we can't be all expected, on our shoulders, all the time, every single time. So um, I,
No.
I really like that.
Yeah, and I was a mama in the early years of motherhood who I did it all. I didn't ask for help, and it
Mhm.
it really bit me in the butt. And I learned the hard way, really hard way. And I also will say that my mother was not a very good role model for me in asking for help from others.
Mhm.
She's very independent and very, um, what do I want to say? She can just do so many things herself still, and she did. She did it
Mhm.
herself. And um, as I started to surround myself with women who were making themselves a priority and almost to the point of like that radical self care, I pretty much, when we were talking about social media and that influence, or a little bit earlier, and how easy it is to get into comparison mode, it's critical for our mental health and well being to surround ourselves with women who are empowering us and inspiring us in a way that feels really good, but doesn't feel like you're not showing up with those feelings of like, oh, well, I can't do it like that, or they're doing it better than me, or we don't want to feel that sense of lack. Instead, we want to feel motivated to be our best selves, right? And so I think that's true too in asking for help. I surrounded myself with women and with mothers who were talking about how they ask for help and how they were getting help. It was like something that I really invested time and energy into because it mattered that much, not only to me, but for my
Mhm.
kids too. So it is such an important topic and something I'm obviously very passionate about, but it is a muscle that we can flex. And um, just really curious to hear more about what your listeners, sometime I'd love to hear a little bit more about that from your listeners.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And of course, I always like post, my shows on various social medias. So I do give my listeners the opportunity to provide, feedback and questions. So I'd love to share those with you,
Yeah.
once they experience this podcast episode. And yeah, once I hear the feedback, I'd love to kind of share with you, because we have some pretty diverse listeners here. And yeah, a lot of them are kind of the super competitive, um, you know, um, tough, resilient, this tough exterior that yeah, have always done it themselves, that have always put themselves, or say that they thrive in these high pressure
Mm,
situations. Um, but as we know, that's not realistic, and that's not sustainable. And
mhm,
um, a lot of times we have a facade on the exterior that we have it all together, that yeah, we're a great mom, we make it to the gym every morning, we make the brownies for the bake sale, and all of these things. But under the hood, you know there's never complete perfection. There's always something that needs to be worked on. And we need to, as women, allow ourselves to break free of that facade, and open up to each other, and share kind of these realities. And yeah, I do kind of blame sometimes the influencers on making motherhood looks so easy and perfect. But we all have our separate situations. We may not have family support. We may not have some women don't have spouses. Some women may have 6 children that they're taking care of. So We
Mhm.
all have our different situations and scenarios. So
Mhm.
that's why I love to hear, and just allow the space for women to kind of get real and get honest with themselves and provide a supportive community where this stuff is okay. This stuff is real. And, I'm kind of sick of us just stifling these emotions because it never ends up well, when
Mm-mm.
you kind of stifle things down. So,
Mm-mm.
I really want to thank you for sharing all of this with us. Um, it's been such a learning experience, for me. I'm not typically the type of person that really has worked deeply with inner stuff, self-talk, even
Mhm.
things like affirmations. I know I can kind of poo-poo that stuff, sometimes to think that um, you know muscle can get me further than some internal work, and I know deep down that is not true. That we are powered internally so that we can work externally.
Mhm.
And I ask this with all my guests, and I really want to hear, um, if maybe you can kind of give me a big picture, but what is kind of the biggest life lesson that you've learned along your journey, kind of in this path? Really love to kind of to hear that and what that looks like for you.
Oh, that's a really powerful question, and let's see if I can pick one thing.
If you could just sum it up in a sentence
Just
or
sum it
two.
up. Yeah. Daisy, I really think it's for me been about loving and accepting myself and loving the parts of myself that are maybe, more people see externally, but also loving the parts of myself that I only experience. As you said earlier, we are whole people internally and externally. And what I have found on this journey so far, not only in motherhood but in life, is that I feel more of a whole person now than I ever have, and happier than I ever have been. Even though life can feel extremely intense sometimes, but the happiest I've ever been in my life because I am fully accepting of who I am. I'm no longer fighting an internal battle with myself about who I think I should be, trying to please others, trying to live up to these expectations that I have set. There's just so many lies that we tell ourselves about who we think we should be. But we are giving ourselves a gift and the whole world a gift when we can be ourselves and love who we are fully. It's just really powerful.
Yeah, definitely
Mhm.
powerful for sure. And now, before we go, I'd also like to hear kind of more about your programs or how you work with women specifically,
Mhm.
and how you help um, people kind of like our listeners who are struggling to put it all together,
Mhm.
to maybe prioritize themselves, or even take that step to putting their health and fitness, to stop putting that on the back burner just because of the craziness of motherhood. I'd just love for you to speak more on what you do and how you help women with some of maybe your programs and
Mhm.
other offerings.
Mhm. So I work with mamas one on one in a very like intimate, personalized setting. And right now I'm working like on a 3-month basis and we'll connect with mamas in various ways through Voxer and through Zoom like this. And I walk them through a process that is by no means uh, etched in stone because again, we all, have such unique experiences with everything that we're being faced with right now, especially with the virus and work life balance and oh my goodness, all of those things, parenting. So I do work with mamas one-on-one, and I find it to be so nourishing, even for mamas, just to be able to speak their heart or be really honest in a safe space about their experience of life right now and where they are and where they want to be. And that is my role as a mama mentor, is to empower and support mamas in creating a life that they truly love and that is based in their values, rooted in their values. And it takes intention, but it's such an honor to be able to do that. So I offer that, and then I also have my own podcast where I connect with mamas. It's called Mornings for Mamas, and it's really about reconnecting with ourselves, creating space and time to create a life that we love and that feels really good to us in motherhood. And then I also am planning to do some more live events when we can, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I love that. So yeah, women definitely listeners, go check her out. Alison Jane, I want you to also share with us your social media handles here,
Yeah.
and then that way, women can find you really quickly. What's the best way to find you online?
So on Instagram, I am Alison Ryan. That's my handle. I am Alison Ryan with one L. And my website is morningsformamas.com. The podcast is also called the Mornings for Mamas podcast. And I'm on Facebook at Alison Jane Ryan. And again, that's Allison with one L.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I really love that. Um, you know, a lot of times fitness goes so much deeper than just pumping iron. There is such a deep component. And, as as women, we fall into these traps of guilt and overwhelm. And I really appreciate you coming on, because I really haven't found someone as unique as yourself that can really kind of speak on this. And this is such a topic that, of course it's related more, it's bigger than just fitness itself.
Mhm.
It's a huge package, and it's really, if you're missing this important piece, it can really set us back in so many different parts in our life. So I really am grateful that you came on, and you really gave yourself. I really appreciate you sharing some of your struggles at the beginning. I know that takes a lot of bravery to kind of bring that to light. But I really do appreciate that you were real today. You brought it, and I'm sure all our listeners are going to appreciate this. So I want to thank you again wholeheartedly for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Daisy. What an honor, and just so generous of you to host me and for me to share my heart and my message with the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, everyone. So definitely go check out Alison Jane's website and social media for some information on how you can start to find time to make you a priority. Now, if you're a mom who is struggling with leakage, diastasis, prolapse, or if you are someone that wants to get back into the gym safely after baby and avoid all those injuries, well, I want you to check out my website at strongmomsfitness.com/challenge. And I want to invite you to get on the wait list, because this month I will be running my free Fit After Pregnancy Challenge. And this will get you kind of going right after baby, back to the workouts, back to the gym, making you stronger than ever, building that strong foundation that you need to sustain yourself for long-term fitness. Now, you don't want to miss this, so check out strongmomsfitness.com/challenge. Have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast. Now remember, go subscribe so that you are the first to know as soon as new episodes drop. Also, be sure you don't miss out on your chance to win a free program of your choice from Strong Moms Fitness. All you have to do is leave a 5-star review. Screenshot it before you submit and send it to daisy@strongmomsfitness.com. Your review helps other people find our show. And as a thank you, once a month we choose the review that makes us all warm and tingly inside and award that lucky lady a free program of their choice. So do it now. It could be you. See you next time, you badass mom, you.